It was 2:14 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand beside me. At first, I thought it was a dream. The glow of the screen cast soft light across my bedroom walls, dancing shadows that didn't belong in my world anymore. I reached for it instinctively, groggy, not yet fully conscious, until I saw his name, Nathan, and the message, "Miss you, Claire. Only a few more nights, and I'm yours again." My heart did something strange, not the usual flutter of affection. This time it stopped, froze, then kicked back into motion like it had missed a beat. The words were sweet, but something about them felt rehearsed, performed, mechanical. I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered above the screen, not to reply, but to reread, to dissect. Because somehow, in that moment of half-sleep and moonlight, my body knew something my heart didn't want to face. That message wasn't for me. At least, not just for me. And like that, a quiet crack split down the middle of the life I thought I was living. For 11 months, I had loved Nathan Hayes. He was charming in a way that felt rare, old-fashioned. He opened doors, remembered anniversaries, made playlists just for me. He was a partner who didn't just show up. He made me feel chosen. He called me his calm in the chaos, and maybe I was, because his life always seemed so busy. He traveled often, consulting gigs in San Diego, finance retreats in New York, industry panels in Boston. His work kept him moving, but somehow, he always circled back to me. Except, I was the only one standing still. He had an apartment in San Francisco. Top floor, bay windows, always spotless, like it was never really lived in. I'd only been there 4 times. Each visit was pre-scheduled, as if he needed time to prepare. Not just to clean, but to set a scene. When I offered to surprise him during a trip once, he shut it down so quickly I remember feeling embarrassed for even suggesting it. "My schedule's nuts, Claire," he said, kissing my forehead. "I'd barely get to hold your hand. Let's wait until I can give you my full attention." It was sweet, until it wasn't. Until I noticed he never tagged locations in his photos, never posted about friends, never let me take a selfie in his place. He'd make a joke, something like, "I like being your mystery man," and I laughed then, because I was still in love. But that night, staring at that 2:14 a.m. message, I wasn't laughing. Something cracked, and it all began to unravel. I didn't reply to the message. Instead, I sat in the dark, surrounded by the life I had built for someone who never fully showed up for me. My apartment still had the throw blanket he bought from Napa. The wine glasses we used on his last visit sat unwashed in the sink. Everything around me whispered ours, but maybe I'd been the only one listening. I opened my laptop. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. I typed Nathan Hayes property records into the search bar, feeling both ridiculous and desperate. He told me he grew up in Napa Valley, occasionally visited his childhood home. It felt like a harmless point of curiosity, until I found it. One property under his name, jointly owned with someone else. Elena Hayes. My blood ran cold. Married. He was married. I felt my stomach drop, and then my body bolted. I barely made it to the bathroom before I dry-heaved, gripping the edge of the sink like the truth might pull me under. But nothing came out, just bile and disbelief. I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Not because she looked different, but because she looked so betrayed. I whispered to my reflection, "You know what you have to do." Because this wasn't going to end in silence. It was going to end in truth. I stayed awake the rest of the night, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. I began collecting everything. Texts, call logs, social posts, receipts. I built a timeline, and patterns started to emerge, so clear it made me feel foolish. He was always traveling every other weekend. Those weren't business trips. He was going home. To her. And according to his latest message, he'd be home tomorrow night. Not in San Francisco. In Napa. With his wife. A plan formed in my mind. Not out of vengeance, not out of rage. Out of necessity. I needed to see it. To stand inside the life he had kept from me. To look her in the eyes and give us both what we deserved. The truth. By 7 a.m., I had booked a rental car, called in sick, packed an overnight bag, tossed a folder of mock design documents into my purse, just in case I needed a reason to be there. The drive to Napa felt like moving through a fog of heartbreak and clarity. My hands shook at stoplights. I rehearsed lies I might have to tell. But through all of it, one truth pulsed steady in my chest. I deserved to know. And so does she. I pulled into the quiet, tree-lined street around noon. The neighborhood was picture perfect. Picket fences, fresh-mowed lawns, kids riding bikes. It made me want to scream. His house, their house, was beautiful. Blue shutters, a porch swing, a wind chime that twinkled in the breeze. A life he built without me, while simultaneously building something else with me. I walked up the stone path and knocked 3 times. I almost hoped no one would answer, but then the door opened, and there she was. Elena Hayes, petite, blonde, wearing a soft pink sweater that matched her rose gold wedding ring. "Hi there," she said, her smile kind. "Can I help you?" My throat dried up, but I held up the folder. "Hi, I'm Claire. I work with Nathan at Harrington Consulting. I have some urgent paperwork he asked me to drop off." "Oh," she said, stepping aside. "He's not home just yet, but he should be here soon. Come in, you can wait." I walked through the threshold of a house I was never supposed to enter. And just like that, the next chapter began. If this story has you hooked already, and you're curious to know what happens when Nathan walks through that door and sees the girlfriend he's been lying to, sitting in the living room with his wife, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support us. It helps more than you know, and it'll keep us creating more powerful stories like this one. We've only just begun. Quick question for you. Let's chat in the comments. If your partner suddenly became distant, which red flag would bother you more? A. They never post about you or tag you in anything on social media. B. They avoid spontaneous visits and always insist on planning ahead. Drop your answer below. A or B. Let's see what everyone thinks. The house smelled like warm vanilla and something citrusy, clean and fresh, like a place that was lived in, loved in. Elena walked ahead of me, her footsteps light across the hardwood floor. She led me through a wide hallway lined with framed family photos. Nathan holding a small boy, Elena in a sun hat at the beach, a Christmas morning scene with wrapping paper. Mid-tear, I tried not to stare, but my eyes betrayed me. Every frame I passed tugged a thread loose in me. These weren't just photos, they were proof. Proof of his double life. Proof that I wasn't just a secret. I was a second story entirely. "We just remodeled the kitchen," Elena said casually, motioning to the left. Nathan insisted on the marble countertops, said they'd make mornings feel brighter. She laughed gently, unaware of how each word landed on me like a punch. "Looks beautiful," I said, my voice too steady, too rehearsed. She led me into the living room. It was exactly the kind of space I'd imagined someone like Nathan would live in, tasteful, grounded, a deep navy couch stacked with soft gray pillows, tall bookshelves on either side of a stone fireplace, a playpen in the corner. My stomach twisted. There were toys inside, a plush dinosaur, a sippy cup, a tiny blanket. "You have kids?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled, shaking, her head. "That's for our godson." My sister's little one. He's here every other weekend while she works the ER shift." Then she looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "We've been trying. It's been a long journey." The words hit harder than anything else she could have said. They were trying to have a child. He was trying to build a family. And yet he'd been sleeping in my bed, sending me songs that reminded him of us, whispering about Italy on my birthday. "Can I get you some coffee while you wait?" Elena asked. "Sure, that would be lovely." As she disappeared into the kitchen, I sat on the couch and looked around. There was no trace of me here. No room for me in the world he lived in with her. A wedding photo sat on the mantel. Nathan in a tailored navy suit. Elena radiant in a lace gown. His hand rested on her waist like it belonged there. Like it always had. I couldn't help but wonder. Had he ever looked at me the way he looked at her in that photo? He had said he loved me. He had looked into my eyes and told me that I was the person he saw in his future. Was that a different Nathan? A persona? Perfectly shaped for me? Or was this the illusion, and I was the truth he longed for? It didn't matter, really. Not anymore. Because I was here, in the home he built with someone else, surrounded by walls that echoed with memories I had no part in. Elena returned with 2 mugs. "Decaf," she said. "It's late in the day. I've had too much caffeine already." I took the mug from her with a thank you, then sipped it just to have something to hold. My hands were shaking slightly. I hoped she didn't notice. "So, how long have you worked with Nathan?" she asked, curling up in the armchair across from me. I paused for a breath. "About 7 months. It was a lie, but not a big one. 11 felt too specific. 7 made me feel less dangerous." She smiled softly. "He really loves that firm. It's the first place he's felt truly challenged, I think. All that travel is exhausting, though." I nodded. "Yeah, he travels a lot." She leaned forward a little. "He just got back from Atlanta last night. Did you see him before he left?" "Atlanta. He told me he was in Chicago." I swallowed the burn rising in my throat and nodded. "Briefly. He mentioned he had meetings lined up all week." Her smile didn't falter, but I noticed a flicker in her eyes. "He said something similar to me, though he called late one night saying he was too tired to talk long. Just a quick good night." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "He must be working hard." Elena nodded. "Always has. That's part of what drew me to him in the first place. His focus, his ambition. When we met in college, he had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. I knew that Nathan. I had loved that Nathan. It broke something inside me to realize he had always belonged to someone else." "How long have you been married?" I asked. 10 years this fall. We're planning a trip to Glacier National Park to celebrate. Assuming work doesn't interfere again." She chuckled lightly, but I saw something flicker behind her smile. A question, maybe. A doubt. 10 years. He had been building a life with her for a decade while building a dream with me for nearly 1. He had 2 anniversaries, 2 futures, 2 lives, and I was about to collapse both of them. The sound of a garage door broke the silence. Elena glanced at the window. That must be him now. My chest tightened. My pulse pounded in my ears. This was it. A moment suspended in time, when all the lies would unravel, when every word he'd ever said would hang in the air between us, daring him to explain. I watched the hallway. Footsteps, keys jangling. The door creaked open and then he appeared. Nathan, same navy coat, same briefcase, same smile, until he saw me. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, then closed, like he couldn't quite form a sentence. "Nathan," Elena said, rising. Your colleague Claire dropped off some documents. She's been waiting for you." He looked from her to me, panic clawing up his throat. "Claire," he said, breathless. I stood slowly. The coffee mug in my hand now felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Elena," I said softly. "I'm not his colleague." She blinked. "What?" "I'm not from his firm. I've been seeing him for almost a year." The room went still. Not silent. Still. Like the world itself was holding its breath. Elena stared at Nathan, then at me. "Is this a joke?" Nathan stepped forward, hands raised. "Elena, please, let me explain." "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't insult her with another lie." He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. And maybe I had, but only because I had chosen truth over comfort. Elena's voice came out as a whisper. "Tell me she's lying." He looked at her, and for a moment I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Regret? Shame? I couldn't tell. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said. That was his answer. Not a denial, not outrage, just guilt, hanging heavy in the air. The silence cracked. Elena's body trembled as she took a step back. "I need you to leave," she said to me. "I understand," I said softly. I placed the coffee mug gently on the table, then reached into my purse. "But before I do, I think you deserve to see this." I handed her a manila envelope. Inside, photos, screenshots, receipts. Not for vengeance, but for clarity. Elena took it. Her hands were shaking. Nathan tried to stop her. "Please, Elena, that's private. It's not private if you built it on our money, on our time, on our life," she said, voice rising. She turned toward him with fire in her eyes now. "You brought her into our home." And just like that, I realized something important. This wasn't just the end of a lie. It was the beginning of a reckoning. For both of us, the moment after truth is spoken often feels like freefall, silent, suspended, the world watching to see where you'll land. I had just told her, and now everything stood still. Elena's eyes didn't move. She stared at the envelope in her hand like it might explode. The pictures inside, of me and Nathan holding hands across a dinner table, of us hiking in Muir Woods, of a lakeside cabin with wine glasses on the railing, were a mirror to the life she thought she knew. She looked up at me, then at him, her face frozen somewhere between disbelief and devastation. "How long?" she asked, her voice a ghost. I opened my mouth, but it was Nathan who answered. 11 months. It was like the breath was knocked out of her body. Her hand went to her chest, not dramatic, not performative, just a reflex, as if her heart had physically recoiled. 11 months, she whispered. While we were trying to conceive? Elena, he started, but his voice was weak, brittle. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. She turned to him slowly, eyes narrowing. You didn't just trip and fall into another woman for a year, Nathan. I didn't mean to hurt you. I stepped back. This wasn't mine to interrupt, but she wasn't letting me leave just yet. Stay, she said sharply. I want you both here. I want to hear this with witnesses. Nathan rubbed his face, pacing now. The confident, curated man I had known was unraveling with each second. His hands trembled. His forehead was damp with sweat. Elena, please. This doesn't have to be what? She snapped. Honest? Consequential? For once in your life, you don't get to manage the optics. She reached for the folder and pulled out the stack of receipts and photos. She leafed through them, eyes scanning the evidence of a life she was never meant to see. This was taken in Tahoe, she said. That same weekend you told me your mom was in the hospital. Nathan looked like he might be sick. You used my grief, she whispered, her hands beginning to shake. You used my mother's illness to cover your tracks. Elena, I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose, what, your wife or your girlfriend or both? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Why me? I asked quietly, speaking to Nathan. Why start something with me if you had this? He turned to me slowly, shame dull in his eyes. I wasn't looking for it. You were different. You made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. You told me you were single. I know. You said you loved me. I did. I do. Elena let out a harsh laugh, bitter and raw. He told me he loved me too. This morning, before he left, said I was the best thing that ever happened to him. I stared at Nathan. How many other women? No one else, he said quickly. Too quickly. Don't lie, I said. He hesitated. Then his gaze dropped to the floor. There was someone. Before Claire. It didn't last long. Her name was... I don't want her name, Elena interrupted. I want to know when. He swallowed hard. 2 years ago. Maybe less. Elena closed her eyes. Her lips pressed tight like she was holding back a scream. She stood perfectly, still, and for a moment, I thought she might pass out. But when she opened her eyes again, she wasn't crying. She was calculating. What else are you hiding? Nothing, he said. But Elena was already moving. She crossed to the side table and pulled out a leather portfolio. I recognized it from his apartment in San Francisco. He kept it near the kitchen counter, always locked. She opened it now with practiced hands and pulled out a stack of documents. Bank statements, transactions, names of accounts I'd never seen before. Claire, she said, handing me a page. Look at this. Avalon Luxury Rentals. I froze. That's where his apartment is, I whispered. He told me the company paid for it. Elena looked at Nathan with dead eyes. You used our money to keep your affair alive? He stammered. I wasn't thinking clearly. That's one way to describe betrayal, she said, her voice calm in that terrifying way only women who are done tolerating lies can achieve. She turned back to me. How did you find our address? Property records, I said. It wasn't hard, she nodded. Of course not. I was just never supposed to be curious enough to look. Nathan had gone silent. His shoulders slumped, his mouth pressed into a thin line. But then his phone buzzed on the coffee table. He ignored it. Buzzed again. Elena raised an eyebrow. You expecting someone? He shook his head. I watched him closely, a growing suspicion forming like mist in my brain. I stepped toward the table. Who is it, Nathan? He didn't move. I reached for the phone. He grabbed it first. Give it to me, Elena said. It's private. You lost your right to privacy the minute you walked 2 lives into the same living room. Nathan hesitated, but Elena was already on the offensive. I'll call Verizon and request a full record of texts and calls. I have every right as your wife. You want to fight me on this? Let's start now. He caved, handed her the phone. She unlocked it easily. Their anniversary. And what she found made her go still again. Her thumb scrolled, and then stopped. She turned, the screen toward me. There I was. Text messages, saved photos, notes like, Claire, hates mushrooms, prefers Merlot, met her mom May 5th. Another contact. Lauren. Who's Lauren? Elena asked. Nathan didn't answer, but the silence did. Before either of us could speak, headlights flashed across the window. A car pulled into the driveway. Elena stepped back from the window, her face a mask. Who did you call? No answer. A knock. I felt my heart jump into my throat. Elena opened the door. A young woman stood there holding a tablet. She wore office heels and had a sharp, confident look that faltered the moment she saw us. "Hi," she said hesitantly. "I'm looking for Nathan." "And you are?" Elena asked. "I'm Lauren. I work with him. He asked me to drop something off." "Come in," Elena said. The girl stepped inside, looking around, her eyes landing on me, then Nathan, then the thick tension hanging in the air. Lauren blinked. "What's going on?" "I'm Claire," I said. "Nathan's girlfriend." Her face froze. No, I'm..." She turned to Nathan. "You told me you were separated." Elena didn't laugh this time. She just stepped aside and said, "Let's all sit down, shall we?" And so we did. Nathan sat in the middle, his head in his hands. 3 women. 1 man. Too many stories. The unraveling had begun, and we weren't going anywhere. Because this wasn't just about catching a liar. This was about reclaiming our stories, and the reckoning had only just begun. None of us spoke for a while. The room was quiet but heavy, like the air itself had thickened. Nathan sat on the edge of the couch, his elbows on his knees, hands cradling his face. He didn't look up once. His body sagged as if all the roles he'd been playing had finally become too much to carry. Across from him, Elena stood by the fireplace, arms folded, the manila folder still in her hands. I sat near the window, watching the street outside fade into evening, the glow of the porch light catching on Lauren's stunned face as she tried to make sense of the wreckage she'd walked into. "I need you to say it," she said eventually, quietly, to Nathan. "Tell me the truth." He lifted his head just slightly, looked at her with bloodshot eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "Stop saying that," Elena snapped, her voice cutting across the room like glass. "You didn't trip and fall into betrayal. You built it. You maintained it. You funded it. You chose it." Lauren swallowed hard. She was younger than me, maybe by 6 or 7 years, but her voice didn't shake when she spoke again. "You told me you were going through a divorce. You said your wife was controlling and cold, and that you were staying with a friend in the city while things settled down. You said you were exhausted from pretending all the time. I thought I was helping you move forward." Elena turned to her slowly. "Helping him cheat on me." Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know." "I believe you," Elena said, and she meant it. That was the moment things changed. Until then, we had all been orbiting around Nathan, his lies, his charm, his web of manipulation. But now the center had shifted. It was no longer about him. It was about us. 3 women. 3 narratives. 1 shared betrayal. And we were ready to take the story back. Elena was the first to move. She picked up Nathan's phone again, opened his notes app, and held it up so we could see. A color-coded schedule. Names next to time blocks. Our names: Claire, Lauren. Codes like C dinner SF, L office late, E anniversary dinner. He had planned it all. Efficient, I muttered bitterly. Pathological, Lauren whispered. "I'm done," Elena said. She turned to me and Lauren. "I don't know about you two, but I've wasted enough time trying to make sense of someone who doesn't deserve any more of my mind." We nodded. The shift was slow, but powerful. It began with Elena pulling a chair closer to mine. Lauren moved next, sitting beside me. For the first time since the truth had shattered around us, we sat side by side, not as rivals, not as enemies, but as women rebuilding. Elena opened a laptop and began organizing everything: emails, screenshots, call logs. Lauren logged into her email and began forwarding any documentation she had. I took out a small notebook, where I'd been logging inconsistencies for weeks. "This is your apartment, right?" I asked, flipping to a page where I'd pasted a receipt for a weekend at a cabin 2 hours outside San Francisco. "You told me it was your parents' rental." Nathan didn't answer. "It's rented under his name," Elena confirmed, showing us the banking app. "Paid out monthly directly from our joint account. You took from her," Lauren said. "Not just emotionally, you stole." Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard. She was compiling a file for her lawyer. "I'll need access to those receipts," she said to me and Lauren. "Everything we can get." "Done," I said. "I've got messages too," Lauren added. "And texts where he said horrible things about you," she added, glancing at Elena. Her expression didn't waver. "Send them. The court should see what kind of man he really is." Nathan looked up, as if waking from a trance. "You don't have to destroy me." "Destroy you?" Elena said. "You did that yourself." "No," he said. "I mean, can't we just fix this? Go to therapy, start over." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena stood. "You've already spent a year rebuilding a different life with 2 other women. You're out of materials." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small voice recorder. "From now on, every interaction will be documented. For legal purposes." He looked horrified. "You're recording me?" "I'm protecting myself. And I suggest Claire and Lauren do the same." Lauren and I exchanged glances. She nodded. "I want everything," Lauren said. "Every receipt, every schedule. My brother is a lawyer. I'm not letting him get away with this." "That makes 3 of us," I said. The atmosphere shifted again. We were no longer women scorned. We were a unit. The 3 of us began assigning tasks. I would digitize all my photos and export my text chains. Lauren would call her brother and begin drafting a complaint. Elena would have her lawyer file for financial misappropriation and emotional distress. She'd also begin divorce proceedings immediately. As we worked, I looked at Nathan. He had faded into the background now. Smaller, quieter, irrelevant. "Why us?" I asked him finally. "Why not just leave your marriage if you were so unhappy?" His answer was almost a whisper. "Because I wanted all of it." He didn't say it with malice. He said it like a man who'd finally admitted the ugliest truth of all. He didn't love us more or less. He just loved the way we made him feel. The admiration. The devotion. The variety. It was never about connection. It was about control. "I used to think I wasn't enough," Lauren said. "But now I realize I was too much. Too smart. Too trusting. Too available." Elena nodded. "You were everything he needed. Until you started asking questions. We all had, eventually. And that's what broke the illusion." We spent another hour sorting through the mess. As we did, Nathan tried to speak several times, but none of us responded. At one point he rose to leave, and Elena said sharply, "Leave anything behind and it becomes evidence." When he finally walked out the front door, none of us followed. We sat there in the silence he left behind. Not empty, not broken. Just quiet. Elena looked at us. "I don't know what happens next, but I know it'll be better than whatever came before." It was the first real smile I'd seen on her face. Lauren and I nodded. We didn't know where we were headed, but we knew we weren't going back. Not to him. Not to the version of ourselves that trusted a man over our own instincts. It wasn't just about reclaiming the truth. It was about reclaiming ourselves. 6 months passed. The quiet that came after Nathan left wasn't the peaceful kind. Not at first. It was jagged, raw, filled with nights where my mind replayed every moment, searching for signs I'd missed, red flags I'd painted over in the soft hue of hope. The grief was strange. I wasn't mourning a man. I was mourning a mirage. In those early weeks, I deleted his photos in small batches. I couldn't do it all at once. It felt too final, too violent. So I started with the easy ones. Blurry selfies, group shots where his arm was around my shoulder. Later came the more intimate ones. His face close to mine, our eyes half laughed, half lost in each other. When I finally erased the last one, I sat on my bed and cried. Not because I wanted him back, but because I couldn't believe how fully I'd believed in someone who never really existed. I changed apartments. Moved out of the place where he had stayed, where his toothbrush still sat beside mine long after he didn't. I got rid of the wine glasses, the throw blanket, even the tea he always drank. I needed the physical space to match the emotional distance I was building. I didn't hear from him. Not directly, anyway. I heard things through whispers, his resignation from the firm, the rumors swirling through mutual acquaintances about inappropriate conduct, and later, his quiet relocation to another state. He'd started over somewhere new, which made sense. He was good at reinvention. But I no longer wondered who he was pretending to be now. That part of me had healed. What surprised me most was how the wound hardened into something protective, something powerful. Betrayal had bruised me, yes, but it had also clarified what I would no longer tolerate. I began to recognize the small ways I'd been bending myself to fit into Nathan's narrative. How I'd rearranged my work schedule, my travel plans, even my wardrobe. Love isn't supposed to ask you to shrink. Real love, I've since learned, doesn't require sacrifice of self. It requires truth, presence, and mutual bravery. One Tuesday. Morning. An email landed in my inbox. Subject: update, if you want it. It was from Elena. I froze. I hadn't spoken to her since the night everything came undone. We'd exchanged a few brief texts the week after, mostly logistical things, sharing files and forwarding receipts. After that, we'd gone our separate ways, each woman on her own journey through the aftermath. Her message was short, but full of life. Hi, Claire. I debated whether or not to reach out, but I thought you deserved to know. The divorce was finalized last week. The court ruled in my favor, thanks to the financial evidence we collected. Nathan's lawyer didn't even try to fight it after he saw the documentation. Lauren's testimony helped. She kept every message where Nathan misrepresented our marriage. As for me, I'm doing okay. I'm selling the house. Too many ghosts. I've put a deposit down on a condo downtown, closer to work, smaller but brighter. Oh, and I've kept in touch with Lauren. We get coffee once a month. She's gone back to school. Forensic accounting, if you can believe it. Says she wants to help other women who've been financially manipulated. She's doing really well. If you're ever in the city and want to meet up, I'd love to buy you a coffee. Not as his ex-wife and ex-girlfriend, but as two women who faced the same storm and walked through it. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I responded with a single line. Coffee sounds good. We met 3 weeks later at a rooftop cafe with a view of the bay. It was windy that day, the kind of wind that pushes your hair into your eyes and makes you squint, but neither of us seemed to mind. Elena looked different, lighter. Her hair was shorter, her makeup softer, her eyes clearer. You look free, I said. She smiled. That's exactly how I feel. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, about work and books and what we were watching on Netflix. We didn't speak about Nathan at first, and I appreciated that. There's something healing about being able to occupy space without revisiting pain. But eventually the conversation turned, as it was bound to. I spent weeks, she said, staring into her cappuccino, going back through our history, our photos, our texts. I kept asking myself, When did he start lying? Did you figure it out? I asked. She shook her head. No. And then I realized it didn't matter. The problem wasn't when he started lying. It was who he was when he did it. We sat in silence after that. Not awkward, comfortable. Like the quiet that follows when two people realize they've been through something profound, and both have survived. I got promoted, I told her. The job I didn't go after last year because Nathan said it would require too much travel. Good, she said, smiling. I just closed on the condo he said was too expensive. We laughed. It was a real laugh, full-bodied and free. Before we left, she reached into her bag and handed me a small box. Inside was a silver compass pendant on a delicate chain. I got one for myself too, she said, to remind me to trust my direction, to stop letting someone else steer. I held the pendant for a moment, the metal cool against my skin. Then I clasped it around my neck. Thank you, I said, for everything. You showed up at my house that day thinking you were ending something, she said quietly. I think we both were. But we also began something that day. Something honest. Something unshakable. She was right. That day, I thought I was walking into a disaster, and I was. But I didn't realize that I'd also find something unexpected in the ruins. Truth, resilience, and the strange beginning of a friendship forged in fire. As I walked, away from the cafe that afternoon, the city below me humming with life, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't known in a long time. A peace born not from pretending everything was okay, but from facing what wasn't and choosing to rebuild anyway. I don't know where Nathan is now. I don't care. What I do know is this. We were all victims of the same man, but none of us remained victims. We became architects of our own lives. We turned betrayal into clarity. We took back our time, our voice, our worth. I still wear the compass. It reminds me every day that I am not lost, that I never was, that I simply followed the wrong map for a while. But my true north was always there, waiting. Some stories end with revenge. Ours didn't. Ours ended with truth. And from that truth, something stronger was born. Not bitterness, not rage, but clarity, sisterhood, and direction. Because in the end, it wasn't about him. It was about us. And we're still writing our stories. Only now, we're the ones holding the pen. Claire thought she had found something real. Love, consistency, maybe even a future. For nearly a year, Nathan made her feel special, chosen, like the rare calm in his chaotic, busy life. He showed up with charm, attention, curated affection. But all along, beneath the surface of romantic dinners and stolen weekends, he was hiding, a truth so deeply entrenched, it took breaking through a false reality to finally uncover it. When Claire discovered Nathan was married, to Elena, and had been lying not only to her but to another woman, Lauren as well, the story didn't just fracture, it shattered. What followed wasn't the kind of dramatic outburst you'd expect in fiction. It was something far more powerful. 3 women choosing not to fight each other, but to unite against the man who had manipulated all of them. In a living room once staged for a lie, the truth took its rightful place. Claire watched a wife face the collapse of her marriage, a young woman confront the fact that her relationship was built on fiction, and herself transform from a heartbroken girlfriend into someone seeking clarity, not closure. Nathan tried to maintain control, but the women reclaimed it with evidence, strength, and solidarity. One betrayal had bound them, but it was their courage that connected them. Elena didn't collapse. She strategized. She collected receipts, recorded the truth, protected her assets, and took legal steps toward freedom. Lauren, blindsided but brave, stepped up and offered everything she had. Her testimony, her messages, her truth. Claire, who once questioned her intuition, became its fiercest defender. Each woman owned her part of the story, but none of them let the lies define them. In the months that followed, they moved forward, not with rage, but with resolve. Elena finalized the divorce, sold the house, and downsized not in defeat, but in liberation. She reconnected with herself, began living on her own terms, and found purpose in helping others avoid the financial and emotional traps she'd fallen into. Lauren returned to school to study forensic accounting, channeling her pain into a career aimed at empowering women who had been financially deceived or exploited. Her betrayal became her mission. Claire? She started again. She launched her own design studio, took the promotion she had once been discouraged from pursuing, and finally found peace in solitude. She learned to trust herself, not just in work or relationships, but in the quiet choices that build a life of authenticity. And somehow, out of betrayal, friendship bloomed. Claire and Elena met again, not as exes of the same man, but as women with shared scars and unshakable strength. Their bond didn't come from what they lost, but from how they faced the storm and walked through it together. The compass necklace Elena gifted Claire symbolized far more than direction. It represented trust in oneself. In every moment we feel disoriented by lies, shame, or heartbreak. Our internal compass, though shaken, still knows where to point. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to investigate. You are allowed to walk away from people who only show you fragments of themselves. And most importantly, you are allowed to rebuild, not just your life, but your identity, after betrayal. Love doesn't ask you to doubt your worth. It doesn't demand silence when something feels off. And it never forces you to compete, to shrink, or to sacrifice who you are to stay chosen. In today's world, where appearances can be curated and lives edited down to perfect highlights, it's more crucial than ever to tune into the voice inside that says, "Something's not right." That voice isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. So if you ever find yourself piecing together timelines, catching discrepancies, or staring at someone you once trusted with tears of confusion, you are not crazy. You are awakening. Use the truth to set yourself free, not to punish others, but to honor yourself. Because as Claire, Elena, and Lauren showed us, when women choose each other over the lies that divide them, healing begins. And from healing comes power, purpose, peace. Now we want to hear from you. Here's a question just for you, inspired by today's story. If someone you loved deeply was hiding a major secret, what would hurt you more? A. The emotional betrayal, knowing their love wasn't real. B. The deception itself, that they looked you in the eyes and lied. Comment your answer below. A or B? And more importantly, what would you have done in Claire's shoes? Or Elena's? What part of the story resonated with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments so others can read and reflect too. Your story might help someone else feel seen, heard, or even healed. If this story moved you, surprised you, or reminded you of your own strength, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is what keeps us going, and it's the reason we can keep bringing you these powerful, real, emotional journeys. Until next time, trust your compass, always.